The last question is from my friend Bülent.
Yes, Sergey, let's talk about your brother, United States. After election, Mr. President Obama's second term has started. And how do you evaluate the results of the elections in the United States? And how do you think the leadership of the President Obama could make efforts in order to encourage peaceful relations among all faiths and nations, particularly in the Middle East? And how can Turkey, Israel, and the United States work in alliance for this crucial end?
Well, I think we will need to have at least 3-4 hours of time to briefly discuss that.
Shortly, please.
Briefly, please, yes.
It was important that elections are behind, because every time elections is disruptive for a country, any elections, because a lot of attention goes there, a lot of money goes there, a lot of people time. So Obama's second term, it would not be easy. It would not be easier than the first one, because he still has a lot of problems to do. And first of all, at home. So we talk about economy. He will need to concentrate on economy. If not, he will not be able to do anything else. And as to the foreign policy, I think he will continue the same foreign policy. It didn't bring too many good results in its first term, but it's not an easy task. And I think the United States is honestly trying to help people and countries in conflict without any other thoughts, like conquer something or make someone vulnerable. I deal a lot with people in the Pentagon. I met a lot of generals who served in Kosovo, who served in Bosnia, who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're nice people. They just sent there, and they truly try to help as human beings. So I don't think there is a certain conspiracy that the United States is trying to conquer the world and get all the oil from there and then stay there and control everyone. But unfortunately, the world is not unipolar anymore. The world becomes multipolar, and the world becomes, when the world was too polar, it was easy. Soviet Union, United States, everything was very predictable. Now the world becomes multipolar. China is there. You have several major wars in your region, and you don't have too many allies. United States. And one of the natural ally is Russia. And the United States still cannot find a way to find how to make Russia the full ally. I know the answer. Russians know the answer. The answer is one, is to tell Russia, you are equal to us. That the United States will never do. And this is the only price Russia is willing to pay to help United States in everything United States can do. So that's why, as an example, when we do this program between Russian generals and American generals, we try to explain them there are some governments and countries which do their politics. But people who are in those countries, even that they're uniform, they can have their own views. And in 2008, you remember when there was a war between Georgia and Russia.
Yes.
And at that time, we had a program which was canceled because the United States didn't want to send generals, American generals, to meet with Russian generals. And Russian generals didn't want to come. But in the end, they came after the Georgian war, representatives of militaries of two countries which had polar views on this war, and at least they had an environment to talk. All of them had their own views, and all of them had their own opinions, but at least they were communicating. That's what you mentioned before. Just communicate, and by communicating, people educate themselves unconsciously, and people educate others. So this is a piece of education and piece of communications come together. So the more countries know and understand what United States is doing would be good. Unfortunately, the foreign policies of the United States is not perfect. It is not very comprehensive. It changes sometimes. But it's still at least the best what they can get at this particular stage of human development.
Jerry, I think you have something to say about President Obama, yeah?
Yeah. I think myself, I think we're going to see more changes come out of NGOs than government policy. I do agree that I don't think there is a conspiracy on the point or on the side of the U.S. to take over and control, so to speak, the natural resources. I do think that there are entities within the United Nations and within the U.S. that do have motives that are corporate based, that are deeply economic based. I think one way that President Obama's leadership could benefit in the Middle East would be to open up America a little bit to talking more to other countries on a more neutral ground, on a more common ground. I think one of the problems we have is our country is, well, you can talk to some and they would say it's imperialist. I wouldn't go that far, but there are things that our government needs to do with the Middle East and around the world that to show actually, I think, good faith, and that the fact that myself, I don't agree that America is the #1 country in the world anymore. I don't believe we should have numbers like that on countries. We're all here to work together, and I really think that my own country, I think one of the biggest problems we have is arrogance. And I'm not just talking about politically or militarily. The romanticism that goes along with being a good patriot or a good citizen of the United States, and this is brought up in schools, in churches, 4th of July parades. I mean, people are raised with the idea that America is the #1 country. We're #1. We're all in. And that arrogance, I think, does a lot to deter a lot of forward momentum with other countries, because it creates a situation in the population that people want to judge other countries on what the U.S. is. And I think that is unfair, because part of that is our education system. Part of it is our culture. We are, a lot of people, we put it as America is a melting pot, and it definitely is. And there are a lot of different religions, a lot of different races of people in the U.S., and for the majority, American people get along. And part of that is because American people on the civil side, most people do not try to push their beliefs. They don't try, they know that most other people have a right to their liberty or their freedom. The biggest problem I think we have, excuse me, with that is our government realizing that. We have a lot of security measures in the U.S. that I think go quite a bit overboard. A lot of the problems we have, I think, are self-perpetuated. But I also think there is hope for working all this out. I'm not going to touch a whole lot on President Obama's presidency, because I myself, and like millions of others here, one big problem President Obama is going to have to overcome too is the support he gets in America as well. Because there are a large number of people that do not support Obama. And part of that is the foreign policy. I will go even further than Mr. Konoplyov did, because, excuse me, a lot of the problems that we do have with foreign policy have been the interventionist, or the interventional style of foreign policy that we have. There are places that we have forced our democracy on. And democracy in every country is going to be different because you have different cultures, you have different societies. So I don't think we can, as a country in the West, expect other people in the Middle East to say, this is our democracy, it'll work for you, here you go, because that's not going to happen. There are a lot of politics, I know, that go out in the U.S. and they don't want to talk about religion. The only thing is when you talk about the Middle East, you're talking about thousands and thousands of years of religion influencing politics. Now, not to say that religion runs politics, but to say there is that influencer. That is the culture. And a lot of people in the Western world don't understand this. So when you have the U.S. talking about politics or talking about coming together and working with other people, when they don't talk about religion, it's like talking about swimming in the ocean without talking about water. That's, it's in the Middle East. It's been there forever. You have to recognize that in order to get past those personal differences, or at least put them on the table and work past that to get to the real problems. And I think a lot of that we have goes back to Romanticism and education. And I think even the governments of the world could use a little education when it comes to Romanticism and sentimentality within their own nations. Because we go back and look at history, a lot of history is going to have to be, it's there, it should be there to learn from, but not there to base what we do everything every day on. We're living now, we're living in the future. So we should be building for the future, not avoiding the past, because the past is what taught us those lessons. So I think we need to take those and move on past that and move on with the future.
Yeah, we totally agree. Thank you for both, for all the thoughts, and my friend is going to finish the show. Thanks for participating, both, Mr. Sergei.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Sergei, for joining us, and we hope to see you here in our studios also as soon as possible. And thank you, Jerry, for your valuable comments also, inshallah, and thank my friend Erdem and Serkan. And so we come to the end of our show today, and we had very great interview with Mr. Sergei Konoplyov. On behalf of everyone here in Istanbul, we would like to say good night and God bless you.
Good night.
Good night, guys. It was very nice to meet you, Mr. Konoplyov.
Nice meeting you, and my best wishes of prosperity and peace to Turkish people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate it. Thanks.